Hilary, welcome. Nice to have you. I haven't thrown out your text, have I? Have I? I don't know.
I don't know. Hard to
exactly.
say.
But yeah, no, I've got it right in front of me. Can I tell you, I raised that this morning, and I'm glad you've raised it. It was to do with the Greens. You want to talk about the Greens and the Pacifica Greens in particular, including Marie Lafiso, or she's a Green councillor on the Dunedin City Council, who apparently has got so offended by everything she's resigned from the Greens because she felt, along with a couple of her fellows, culturally unsafe for curious reasons by how they were dealing with Darlene Tana. Have you got some background or some explanation as to all this, have you? Because none of us can quite understand it.
Yes, well, I've been thinking about how the Greens get to the position they're in, because they choose a very disparate group of people, and this time it's sort of not been a good plan for them, this triennium, this parliamentary term, and they've just been sort of falling over like flies for one reason or another. And I realise that that's because partially because they're chosen by the membership, and they've got this sort of curious sort of pretend democracy. And why I call it the pretend democracy is that they're in the middle of a representative democracy system, which our government is, and they then say that the membership is in charge. And so what you've got there is, imagine if you went to all the registered rugby players in New Zealand and asked them who should be chosen for the All Blacks. Instead of having the coach choose them or somebody else choose them, no, you have everybody else who's also a rugby player, they get to choose them. And so you would end up with all sorts of weird people, wouldn't you?
Well, and I guess also the analogy works on another way, on the sense that you don't choose them for their talent or their ability. They're not put into the top 15 for that reason. They're chosen because they represent, or you think they represent, certain sectors of society or cultural background, yeah?
Yes, and to provide some balance. So you don't look at them and think, so you've ended up with all these people from all over the world. They're not, a lot of them aren't, as it were, homegrown New Zealanders. They're from all over the place. They're like an international cafe scene at back in the day when you wandered the earth and went to a, youth hostel or something. It's that sort of feel about it if you have a look at them. And that means they haven't been brought up necessarily in the systems of democracy and what to expect and things that we have. So from all over the place,
So if they're all over the shop when they get chosen, it's not surprising they're all over the shop once they're there.
Yeah, and once they're there, their only guiding principle seems to be that the end justifies the means.
Oh, just quickly on that one though, the Darlene Tana, none of us knew who she was before. The Greens are clearly going to, they're determined to expel her from the Greens party, expel her from Parliament, sorry. She's already left the Greens party. They're just building up to that, aren't they?
Yeah, well, the leadership is pretending that they're not doing it, that it's a membership decision.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
And it's just bullshit, because quite clearly they've already done some things that the membership wouldn't have chosen to do, and they have to. That's why you have leaders, and that's why it's a representative democracy system. So you choose people who you hope can use their discretion wisely on your behalf, and you have principles and ideas behind it, which is what most parties have. But the Greens the leadership hides behind the membership. And this is a time when they've been caught out, because they can't really hide behind the membership. This is something that the leadership should have just done, really, if it was going to do it. And so you've got this sort of mismatch of things that they're doing.
Apart from giving us entertainment, which the Greens do on a relatively regular basis at the moment, and you're right, which will be the next one to die, resign, face criminal charges, be accused of bullying, so it's
all of the above.
all of the above. We're playing this sort of game at the moment, and they provide us enormous entertainment. They still are getting, according to the most recent poll, 12% of New Zealand thinking that they've got the political... in fact, they poll better than New Zealand First and the ACT Party.
Yeah,
Does that
like
suggest
Trump.
that 12% of New Zealand is mad?
A bit. I think they're choosing them because they think they mean well. And I'm not even sure that they mean well, actually. But I think, that they ignore the reality. We're being encouraged all day and every way, particularly by the mainstream media, to ignore the real situation and to pretend the world is a different place than what it is. And those people who are saying they're voting for Greens have to be pretending the world is not the place that it actually is. It's the place they'd like it to be. And they'd really like the Greens to be those sort of people.
I'm personally looking forward to when Darlene Tana does go, just because they're going to bring in another weirdo to replace her by the name of Benjamin Doyle, who's as woke and as wet as it's potentially possible to be. He spent 9 years in education as a high school teacher. In his press release, he said, in Tamaki Makaurau and Kirikiriroa, so not in Hamilton or Auckland. He's a kaupapa Māori researcher at the University of Waikato, and he's spent time organising community wānanga for rangatahi Māori artist Takatapui, I think, which is a trans community, isn't it? And LBGTQIA plus people in Kikiriroa and across the Motu. That's how they announced
Is there only one of them?
Well, listen, I think there must be about 9 personality disorders there.
No,
but they're all going to be represented in the House.
It would be appropriate for somebody who had a variety of personalities to be they, wouldn't it? I would be happy to call somebody who has a variety of personalities they, whereas I'm not happy to call somebody who tells me their pronoun is something, but for them, they never have to address that silliness. Like, my pronoun's stuck there.
When he sits down and goes to the toilet, or do you think when he stands at a urinal, I wonder if he stands at a urinal, but there you go, do you think he says, oh my God, I'm not a man. I'm a they. It must produce enormous, I would imagine, impulse problems at various times of the day. Yeah. So what I can work out...
Having, like tea, I drink tea, I drink coffee. I like to know which is being put down in front of me. I don't mind. It could be either or, but it's either
What
tea
toilets
or
does he use?
Coffee.
Do you think that prevents him with a dilemma? There's the male, the female toilet. Which one do you go to when you're they?
Yeah.
Maybe they just need... They need their own toilets. I mean, that'll be the next thing. Anyhow, Benjamin Doyle's on the way. The Greens are going to get rid of her. Listen, I personally think that Marie Laufiso is weird. She is the Green councillor in Dunedin. I've observed her. She's one of these people who's always offended by just about everything. So I think there isn't anything she's not offended by. I'm stunned that she could even be offended by the Green Party, who seem to lean over to be kind to everybody.
Well,
but apparently her cultural, spiritual and familial well-being is not being looked after them. Are we expecting the Greens to be everything to everybody now?
We expect them because they say themselves that they pride themselves on being a family and that they look after people and support each other. And they've just made the most dismal attempt at doing any of that this year, haven't they, and last year?
Yes.
I mean, you'd be better to shut up about your thinking that you're a family, really, wouldn't you? You just you should be embarrassed about saying, we look after our people, we're a family here.
No, it's a fair point you raise. Okay. Listen, I also want to talk to you because you're in Dunedin and you've been a lawyer, I think, and your husband, obviously, and particularly your husband, not suggesting you haven't been a good lawyer, but very prominent in the legal community. Fraser Barton. Fraser Barton is a name that none of us knew of, perhaps except you guys in the legal community in Dunedin and Otago.
Yeah.
He's head
Michael,
of the New
you're
Zealand.
on your own with Fraser. I'm not going to speak about him.